Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast. I've run out of funny Mark sayings or idioms, so we're just going to call it Carrie and Mark Talk About Politics.
Yeah, or Carrie and Mark do stuff.
I like that one, too. I like the stuff
Do
part
stuff. Okay, so what stuff's been going on then?
Nice segue.
Thank you.
Well, there's a national emergency.
Say it ain't so.
Yeah, the national emergency is around the border. And as I was prepping for this, I thought, I want to know more details about this national emergency. And there were very few details about the substance of the actual national emergency.
Well, first of all, there is no national emergency. I mean, just factually, there isn't one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right, there's that. But more importantly, see, you're my go-to person in this sort of stuff. You know these types of things, I think. What is the enabling legislation or other things that allow a president to declare a national emergency just because they want to?
The president swears on a Bible during his inauguration to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And that really is the foundation for presidential power. I mean, it's obviously written very broadly for lots of different reasons, but it's also the interpretation of it has allowed for secret bombings in Southeast Asia, has allowed for the Iraq War. I mean, all sorts of war-like stuff, but also just growth of presidential power. So that's what my answer to that would be.
So when you have 2,000 people kipping up at your southern border from a climate-shocked, war-destroyed, gang-ridden nation, and that's going to dissolve into a population of 330 million. Let's do the math on this, kids. This isn't even a rounding error. That's a national emergency these days.
Right. A political national emergency. I mean, let's say what it is as well.
So let's think about this in the broader sweep. We're halfway through the Trump administration, and he's got two gigs. And it's the same gigs he started with. I'm going to build a wall.
Yeah.
Come what may. This is the domestic agenda. And then the other one is I'm going to have another meeting with Kim Il-Twinkie, which nobody actually really seems to care about. What happened to all the stuff he was going to do? There was infrastructure, there was draining the swamp, there was sort of, resetting relationships, or was that the last one? I can't remember. But anyway, there was a lot more than just this, and it seems that we're just ground down to this.
Well, and you see it as just a political play for re-election, that he has now staked re-election on this one bullet point in his 500-page campaign plan, and now he's staked everything on it. That for his political calculation that he has to fulfill this particular promise, or it's just that on the front page of the New York Times and the Washington Post, everyone's taking him to task saying he totally failed. Art of the deal sucks. He only got $1.57 billion out of $11 zillion that he wanted. So is it just about ego too?
It could always be that.
Yeah.
So in a nice little segue, we might be building a wall, but somebody who's not building a headquarters is...
Yes. Amazon. So sorry, we're not. So says Amazon. We're not coming to New York. We're not coming to Long Island City. There's a couple interesting op-eds. I want to do a shout out to our colleague Mark Dunkelman, who had something in Politico about this, about how it's this one tiny commission in New York and one person who really held all the power to saying yes or no. And I thought it was an interesting take because, of course, a number of activists and community members and grass tops and grassroots get a lot of the praise for it, and certainly they do. But it's such a political calculation.
But what's the politics? What's the payoff? Why do it? I
know. I actually was thinking there has to have been somebody in the bowels of Amazon doing the cost benefit analysis, and there must have been some talk that the money that the state and the city was going to give them was going to be less.
But how much do they need? I mean, for God's sake, they've never made a profit. They're the biggest company in the world. They're one of the most valuable by stock market indices. Did I mention they don't pay taxes? They just got a $2 billion bung for going there. I mean, do we cover them in treacle and lick them awake in the morning?
No,
I mean, what more do they want?
Yeah. But there is the economic part of it. That it's not like Amazon was like, oh, we're going to do good by you and we're not going to do this. I mean, they must have seen that they weren't going to, the PR part of things, that they weren't going to get the labor market that they wanted.
But a shout out to a friend, Joe Rogers, who sent me some numbers yesterday. So here's some things to think about. So this is an average of 14 metropolitan districts, right?
Yeah.
And let's call the working poor, people who are working for between $30,000 and $50,000 a year, right? So you're up to the 50th percentile, more or less, right? And of those people, they spend an incredible, if I get this right now, I've got to remember this, it's over 50% of their entire post-tax income on transportation and housing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these are Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez's
Yes.
constituents,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Queens is one of the last relatively affordable parts of New
Yep.
York, right? Move up to the 60th percentile, the classic definition of American middle class, 44% of post-tax incomes are being spent on transportation and housing. So let's build a giant subsidized headquarters for a guy who's the richest guy in the world. And let's bring in really high-paid workers and make sure that everyone in her neighborhood can never afford to live there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
gotta, how much do you expect people to take? I mean, seriously, this has gotten out of hand.
Yeah. I mean, but you didn't expect that they would actually back down. So,
But it's more an exit than a back down. It's just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we're done. See
Yeah.
you later. You're not giving us what we want. Bye.
no, it really was. And it was like, thank you. But I mean, the Ariana Grande song with Thank You Next, like we're moving. But they're not moving on.
They're not
gonna-
moving on.
They're
They're
not going to
not-
look
they're
for,
not
look
moving
for
on.
anybody else. On this,
Speaking of people
yes.
moving on,
So this is bringing up a topic
Bringing
that we
the
talked
Bezos
about
back.
last time. Yes, is Jeff Bezos's his sexting with his mistress. I mean, an interesting twist in all of this that he was being blackmailed by the National Enquirer that they were going to show.
who's one of Trump's buddies.
Yes.
And Jeffy Boy hates Trump.
Yes.
So it's great. You get this kind of like billionaire class infight. It's sort of like a high school love triangle. I'll tell on you unless you do what I
Right.
want.
Well, and Jeff also owns the Yearbook / the Washington Post. So he can really have control over putting up, not so great looking pictures of you in the yearbook. So, I mean, that's what I thought was so interesting that, you have the richest man in the world, I think, and really pitted against the president of the United States in this grudge match. And I think Bezos I think he ended up releasing some of the stuff on his own. So
Yeah, it just, okay, this is going to come out one way or another. I want to
Yeah.
be in control of it.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting mix of of course, the media and the politics, but also, I did appreciate Bezos's quote of if they can intimidate me, like what can they do to other people?
But like I said,
regular
he's the
people?
richest guy in the world. Why didn't you just buy the National Enquirer and shut it down?
That's what I actually thought the same thing. Yeah, why
I
didn't
mean,
he
just,
do it?
why would you not do that?
Yeah.
You don't like Trump's Twitter feed? Buy Twitter.
Yeah, yeah, and then not allowed him to have an account.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she also introduced a bill, I think last week.
Can I just say, by the way, I
Yeah.
can never remember her name.
AOC.
And that's why everybody goes for AOC,
Yeah.
because I'm always scared that I'm going to screw up the first part of the second name. So I
Okay,
then
yeah.
blank on the first one. So I just
Yeah.
default to AOC.
I think maybe that's the easier shorthand too. And that's, her handle on Twitter is that. So I
So
feel
there
like
you
that's
go.
okay. Yeah.
That's okay. Good. All right. I'm safe. Next, what are we doing?
AOC's
talking
Green
about.
Bill.
Yes, the Green Bill.
It was really exciting. It seemed to me to be vague on details, as many bills are, but at least there seemed to be some momentum behind it. I mean, I don't think it'll ever be brought to the floor, but at least it was something new that was being introduced.
What do you have to do to get people to focus? I mean, the Brits are just spinning their heads off with Brexit again. We're building a wall for a crisis that doesn't exist. And last year, we were told in black letters, underlined 3 times with a highlighter, 1.5 degrees isn't going to happen. You're looking at 2. And if you're looking at 2, you're talking about upwards of 1 billion climate change refugees spilling out of places like India. And you think you got problems now, just keep going, because for a 4-degree world. So we have all of that information. You have this generation of what she typifies saying, no, we need to take this seriously because we will die when we're 50. And then you've got the old people running Congress who are like, well, no, we need to worry about the wall. And it's just like, what is going on? I mean, as for the content of it, it's eminently sensible. We need to decarbonize the electricity grid as fast as we can. It's not going after somebody's pickup truck. It's not trying to force us all into buses. It's pretty sensible stuff. Modernize, improve, reduce the carbon footprint, decarbonize the grid. In any other country in the world, this would be like, why are we even debating this?
Correct. Yes. And I guess it was just interesting that, I think there has been talk about a bill similar to that, but it hadn't even been brought forward to even not be discussed.
No, absolutely. We would fart around with all this stuff like carbon pricing and all the rest of it, which fine, I get it, I understand it's a technical solution. They're called Pagovian taxes, blah, 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 the rest of it. But at the end of the day, nobody rallies behind the Pagovian tax.
No.
Right? You need something that's a project for a generation, which is something other than let's give Jeff Bezos or his equivalent more money.
Yeah. What also has to be on the individual level, something that I can do. I mean, I can turn my faucet off when I brush my teeth. I know that's not really making a difference. So if it can be something that I can actually do, or it can happen at a structural level, that just makes so much more sense than all this other stuff that is so complicated.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's lots of stuff in there about, social housing and everybody should have a decent wage and, pandas should love each other, right? So there's a lot of fluff in there, but the core proposal, we need to decarbonize the grid and modernize the grid right now, is just such a no-brainer. Right. Instead of which, you know what we're going to do? We're going to tear our faces off over a wall.
No, yep, completely. And we're going to tie ourselves into a pretzel in 2 days when we have to refund the government.
Exactly.
Pandas do love each other too.
Not all of them.
Yes, they do. But a pivot from pandas to insects.
Like that. Pivot from pandas. That was very good. I like that. We're going to pivot from pandas now, folks, towards insects. And what do you know about insects?
I know that sometimes in the summer I'll see a mosquito and I'll think, man, and then they'll bite me.
So I had this weird one a couple of years ago when I remembered when I first came to the United States, and it was the first summer, so in 1992, I was at a cabin in upstate New York, and it was at night. And the lights were on outside, and I was standing outside the door, and there was this big arcs light that came outside. And there was this blizzard of insects. I'd never seen so many different types of moths and flies and everything. And it was amazing. And last year, I was in Rhode Island, southern Rhode Island, and I was standing exactly the same thing, and there was nothing there. And it just hit me. And it was right at that moment that the first of the reports from Germany came out about basically 70% of the biomass of insects is gone. And I went, oh no. And now we've had 2 other reports culminating in this survey of surveys. 40% of insects are done. Around 25% of them are basically heading towards extinction. We could lose the whole lot in basically 100 years because the rate loss per year is 2.5%. Now, these studies could be wrong. It could be oversampled. These populations we know very little about. They boom, they bust, all the rest of it we don't know. But the overall picture is absolutely terrifying.
I mean, this is like the bees.
Yeah, it's the bees magnified, insects, right? Because ultimately, they are the base of the food pyramid.
Right.
Everything, if they go, all the stuff they eat goes, and we're at the top of the pyramid, and it crumbles.
Right.
It's that simple. And again, let's talk about the wall.
Well, I guess this is the thing too that you're always struck by. There are all these massive red flags, like the end is coming, and we're focused on the wall. We're focused on extramarital affairs, whatever it is. And I think your point is right on. How can we get people to focus on? I mean, on one thing even. I don't know.
So when we had a conference here a couple of weeks ago on exactly climate change and economics and real estate and things like this. And one of the ways one of the economists put it, I thought was really good, is that humans are really good at dealing with cycles.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's the business cycle, there's an interest rate cycle, there's the seasons, right? The season cycle. And then things get bad for a while and then they get better, and that's how we deal with it. Well, climate change is basically one big silent thing moving in one direction. And the longer you wait, the worse it gets, and you don't see its effects every day. And that's exactly what we are hardwired as humans to not register.
Yeah.
It's the worst possible problem for us as a species.
Well, and especially, the discounted effect that we take in it's not, well, it is happening to us actually right now as we speak, as it rains in February in Rhode Island.
And we've had hardly any snow.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, well.
Watch this pivot, Blythe. So, Amy Klobuchar, who one of the 6 women, I think, Democratic women who've now declared for running for president of the United States, declared in a blizzard in Minneapolis. And the president tweeted at that time about climate change and how could there be climate change when she was talking in a blizzard. So it shows you how we can't focus.
To quote a line from a description of Trump that I posted on my Twitter feed, his faults are fractal.
Yeah, that's a good line. Yeah. I like the alliteration on that one. More Democrats are running.
Tell us about them. Come on.
There's so many of them. The 2 things that I really am appreciative of are the number of women, the number of dumb articles in the paper talking about women and using the terms that they're actually reporting on, like the way that they look, their husbands, their family lives, their clothes. There was a piece in the Washington Post this week about Nancy Pelosi learned a lot of her political skills through being a mother. And I thought, isn't this exactly? But in any case, One thing that I thought was interesting about Klobuchar is that she has actually taken a stand on something that I've become really interested in, and that's data privacy. Like she actually has a policy on this, and I think this is one of Senator Harris's from California, one of her weak spots that she hasn't. And it's interesting to see that this kind of stuff, when we talk a lot about tech companies on this podcast, that often is not a partisan issue. It is. I mean, they give money to both sides, and so to see a candidate actually take a stand, and we'll have to see if that has any other ripple effects on the other candidates. Of course, the betting, I think Vegas has Kamala Harris as the front runner right now. And, I'm sure there'll be more to come.
Well, once we get into actual primaries and all this, I mean, all bets are off, right?
Yeah,
but at this point in time, let's think of it from Trump's point of view. So he's achieved the square root of nothing. China doesn't care. They're going to outlast the tariffs, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about the next electoral cycle, right? So there's a deal or no deal, doesn't matter. Things are going okay, right? The economy hasn't crashed. Europe may be going into yet another downturn, but the US keeps defying expectations. And his numbers hold. I mean, I don't think I've seen a single poll where they're below 34.
No, I think that's his bottom.
That's his bottom, right? So basically, he's got a lock on a third.
Yeah.
Now, do any of these Democratic candidates, men, women, fish, whatever they happen to be, do they have the ability to get above a third?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, a great question. And I mean, some of them maybe, but they're going to have to really do some political jiu-jitsu to get themselves there. And just looking at the Electoral College, which is, of course, how you see Trump really run up things against Clinton. I mean, you're right. The 4 states that are in play, Florida, are they? I don't know.
And last time, what we had was a female candidate who had lots of techie policies.
Yeah.
And it went nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you got to go back to the New Deal for a second. Part of this isn't about the fact that we need a Green New Deal, which we do, or at least green investment, call it whatever you want, but we need a project.
Yeah.
We need something for people to get behind. Nobody gets behind data privacy.
No, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, right. There has to be, I mean, this is the essence of Obama, that there was this momentum because there was this magical quality about him that people.
But again, it was absolutely contentless. I mean, essentially, we filled in whatever we wanted on the blank space called hope and change.
That's exactly
because the prior administration was so awful.
Yes.
Right. Yep. So then there was no content. Yeah. And it'd be nice to have something that has content. As well as hope and change.
But can the American public focus on that content too?
If someone, think about it this way: when AOC, when AOC started moving the so-called window of possibility on taxes, and all the op-eds are, it's ridiculous, whatever, blah blah blah. Well, I think it was 3 weeks afterwards. There was a poll: 71% of Democrats are in favor of her tax rates, and 40% of Republicans think it's okay too.
Yeah. I mean, take a stand on something, and
I know you might get
Thinking about taking a stand on stuff. Let's jump over to the UK.
Oh.
What's happening with Brexit?
Honestly, at this point in time, no one knows. Like literally nobody knows what's going on. I was watching Parliament the other day on, just a bit of it, obviously. And I had no idea what was going on. So they were voting on an amendment, which was to supersede another amendment, the Cooper Amendment, which was then meant to do something to the backstop, which should have been good for the Tory skeptics who don't like Brexit. But then they all voted against it. And at that point, I was like, I literally have no idea what's going on. And I asked a few friends in Britain, and they just basically at this point, they now put their fingers in their ears and go la 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 when anybody mentions Brexit. No one has a clue what's going on.
The Prime Minister doesn't really either.
No, clearly. Okay. Nobody, literally, they're talking right past each other. What's getting interesting, though, is the European states, not just the EU, are beginning to wake up to the fact that this could be a total mess.
Yeah.
And the Dutch in particular export a hell of a lot to the UK, etc. And they've actually launched this giant Muppet monster called the Brexit mess. And they're like, be prepared for the Brexit mess. I don't know if it's called Brexit mess. It's called Brexit monster or something like this. And, the trade minister's sitting there with this giant Muppet at his desk. Now, what does that tell you about British politics, whereby one of your major trading partners is sitting next to an 11-foot tall Muppet, and that's called what you're doing? So that's, that tells you all we need to know. It's a giant mess. Now, we're edging towards March.
Okay.
There'll be some kind of classic British, fudge delay and kick the can down the road if the Europeans let them. The Europeans clearly have an incentive to not let the whole system crash because they're teetering on the verge of recession, and the last thing is they need for the Brits to blow up and drag them into recession. But they can't do anything because the Brits don't know what they want.
So the extension, the mythical extension to July.
But you can get essentially die, but then we'll still be saying, and now we're tabling the 15th Amendment to overturn the 15th Amendment of the 16th Amendment on the backstop provision, which is, of course, to do with the customs union, which we can't have, nor the second meaningful vote. And everyone will be like, what did you just say? No idea whatsoever.
I mean, I shouldn't laugh because this is so serious, but you don't know what else to do besides like plug your ears.
I'm just going to make sure I'm going to be in Britain when they get the extension.
Okay.
Right? If they get the extension, then basically I'll have to cancel all of the shorts I've got on sterling. If they don't get the extension, I'm going to buy Harrods.
Oh, I see. Well, I was wondering about that because if Brexit happens, maybe it's a good time to buy some real estate in Mayfair.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of Mayfair.
Well, actually, honestly, on our salaries, it would be in Croydon,
okay,
above a chip shop.
Walthamstow.
No, it's way too expensive these days.
Okay.
Oh, way too expensive.
Okay, I don't know anything about. I just was putting out names that I knew.
Good guess. 20
you.
years ago, that would have been cheap.
Thank you. So my funny thing that I was reading in the paper, and this is just about the president of the United States, is that the president did his annual physical this year.
Are you about to fat shame our commander-in-chief?
I am. He is now officially technically obese. His body mass index is in the 40th percentile, which is obese. His physician also said that they expected his health to remain well over
Hang on
the
a
course
second.
of his
Wait a minute.
presidency.
Is he 40th percentile of the distribution, or is his BMI 40?
Sorry. Yes, BMI is 40. Yes,
Okay, BMI, that's different. That's bigger than the 40th percentile.
Yes, that is correct. Also, his physician said that they expect his health to remain his status to remain healthy for the remainder of his presidency. Yeah. But how can you predict if someone's going to remain healthy for the next 2 years?
Well, there's another way. I mean, I hate to say this as well, but, Trump really reflects the country.
Yeah.
I mean, guess what? I can't figure out exactly what percentage is it. Something like, is it 34% of the country's obese?
It's something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
so he's got 34% of the vote.
Yeah.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's all a third. Well, I guess we'll continue to follow all of the excitement having to do with Brexit.
Yeah, in closing, I wonder how, let's maybe we can start a new game, right?
Yeah.
And the new game is, how do we link all these things together in closing, right? So I'm going to have a go first, right?
Okay, thank you.
So here's how it goes. The national emergency at the border, combined with Amazon's decision not to move to New York, causes Jeff Bezos to throw his weight behind the Green New Deal. Not because he cares about climate change, but because he's been blackmailed by a giant insect from the planet Grebulon, who recognizes that with so many Democratic women running, they might have to move to Britain with or without Brexit. Which then brings me to the end. You go.
I think the Gremlin is running for president with Jeff Bezos as his or her vice president, as they think about buying the UK as well and pulling it out of economic collapse. They'll just buy the country. While also, this is so hard. While also declaring a national emergency around the climate change. I really fell off at the end.
All right. Next week we'll pick it up.
Yeah. Thank you all. See you next time.
Till soon.